got an Arch Manning cameo. Not really on our bingo card. Yeah, Chris, you were there. You talked to Sark. Sark said he did it to give him, calm his uneasiness. To me, if I'm Quinn Ewers and I get benched in a big game for Arch Manning, that's probably the one thing that would make me even more uneasy. Quinn said he didn't. You talked to Quinn after the game. What do you make of that decision and where Texas goes from here at the quarterback spot?
So Quinn gets benched. Arch Manning comes in for 2 drives, doesn't do much of anything, has a turnover. Quinn Ewers comes back for the second half. Steve Sarkisian says, we wanted to pull Quinn out, settle him down, let Arch finish the first half, come back with Quinn. So I asked Quinn, when they told you Arch was going in, did they tell you you were going to go back in? And he said no. So I said, when did you find out you were going to go back in the game? He says, in the locker room at halftime. So I don't know if there was some miscommunication there or what, but the Quinn Ewers you saw, like really down on the sideline, that apparently was a Quinn Ewers who didn't think he was going to go back in the game. So Quinn comes out for the second half, plays better.
He was okay.
Not amazing. He was okay. But, this opens up a QB controversy for the rest of the season. Whether or not Steve Sarkisian wants that to be the case, he said after the game, Quinn's our starting quarterback. Well, okay, but now everybody knows that as soon as Quinn is not playing well, you can put Arch Manning in the game and bench Quinn. Steve Sarkisian was asked this on Thursday. What would it take to pull Quinn Ewers from a game to put Arch in? And he's like, I'm not even answering that question. I'm not even dealing with it.
He answered it on Saturday.
And then it happened 2 days later. And so this is just going to be a thing now, because if you've ever been to a Texas game this year, there are so many Arch Manning jerseys everywhere, all around the stadium. They're prominently featured in the team stores and stuff like this. Like I felt bad.
Weirdos.
I felt bad for Quinn Ewers seeing all of that, seeing all the Arch stuff, and Quinn Ewers being in a Dr. Pepper commercial and it being about his backup. Like I was like, I kind of feel bad for this guy. And now Steve Sarkisian did the one thing he never wanted to do, which was pull Quinn from a game for performance and put Arch in, because that is now on the table for the rest of the season.
People say A&M is weird. Wearing the backup quarterback's jersey to a top 5 showdown, that's weirdo behavior. Sorry, Texas. That's weird.
It definitely is.
Damien, what's your thought on this? You lived through the Tua Jalen Hurts, situation.
The saga that was.
That went about as well as I guess you could have gone on the field. But what is that like in the locker room when there is sort of an awkwardness to try and figure out what the right move is, and everybody's got opinions, I'm sure.
Well, you use the perfect word. It's awkward. And I'll go a step further than just the locker room, but in the huddle, because, in the experience that I had with Jalen and Tua, there came a point, obviously Jalen was wonderful. He was great. He was SEC Offensive Player of the Year his freshman year, I think. I mean, he was spectacular. Mm-hmm. But there came a point after some time, and, we had this great young kid named Tua. There was a point in time where people started to wonder, like, I wonder if Tua gives us a little bit of a better passing attack. I wonder if, his arm, what he can do throwing the football can give us a better chance. Because keep in mind, at the time, we had a whole stable full of running backs. I mean, no offense, Jalen, we didn't need an extra running back. And once the rumbling started to get a little bit louder and a little bit louder. And then I remember in that Vandy game, we absolutely demolished Vandy. Everybody played well, but Tua, the backups came in the second half of that game, and Tua was making some unbelievable plays.
I remember that.
We're like, no, this dude might be the guy. Like, we've got the guy, but he might be the guy. Mm-hmm. And then once we started to enter the huddle with Jalen, his demeanor, I'm not going to say it was different, but like I could just tell. And as players, you can tell. So even if he's not necessarily giving off that energy, that awkward energy, you can tell because he knows that if he goes and makes a mistake, then this guy is going to get a chance. And so then you wonder if that starts to affect his play and, his style. And is he too conservative because he doesn't want to make mistakes? These are all the things that I see playing out with Quinn Ewers. I mean, he is the guy, but then we're looking at Arch Manning like, well, he might be the guy. And we know he's going to be the guy in the future. And so this is, a good problem to have, but it's bad in a sense of, what does this do for Quinn Ewers' psyche? And the way he played last night, this was my point and what I really thought of the game. I know Georgia was great, Carson Beck, ETN, they played really, really well. With Quinn Ewers, he looked so like there was no sense of urgency to the point of where like midway through the fourth quarter when they're down 2 scores and there's like 8 minutes left, and it looked like he was just like, it looked like the moment was just too big for him. It looked like he didn't have that look that he had against Alabama when he beat them in Tuscaloosa, or even the look he had against Michigan earlier in the year. He just looked like a kid that was in way over his head. And I wonder if some of that was, okay, yeah, Georgia's really getting on my ass right now. My tackles ain't holding up, but I know that if we don't keep moving the ball down the field, they're going to put Arch right back in, and my ass going to be right back on the bench. So I see that, the same similarities that I saw with Jalen and Tua, I see it kind of playing out now with Quinn and Arch. And, it's just hard because it does throw a wrench in team chemistry. And, you got some guys on the team that like Quinn, you got some guys on the team that like Arch. And in a game like last night, you don't win either way because, even when Arch went in there, he didn't really do anything to obviously keep himself in the game. And when Quinn went back in, there were a couple good plays, but, that kind of fizzled after a while. So it's a tough situation. And, I believe Sark will handle it well throughout the rest of the season, but I just worry about Quinn's mental fortitude moving forward, because now it's apparent. Like you guys said, they asked Steve Sarkisian, what's it going to take for, Arch to get in? I'm not going to answer that. Well, he answered that question. So now, if a game starts to get out of hand again, you're going to be pulled. And now you start to play the game differently from the first snap. And, you never know how that's going to go. So it's a really interesting spot for sure.